Guys, it looks like Natalie's relationship with Josh completely fell apart and is done. So yeah, it seems clear that Josh and Natalie are finally done. Between her wanting to reunite with Mike and all their problems, it looks like these two have broken up, and this was seemingly even confirmed by Natalie herself recently when she commented under one of Josh's Instagram posts because he shared a couple of clips of their goodbye, asking if this was the end for them in the caption, and she commented under his post saying that it was the perfect goodbye, and these two have never really been on the same page, so I'm not at all surprised that their relationship just fell apart like that. And honestly, I mean, it's become pretty clear over the last couple of episodes that the single life that maybe Natalie's problem in her relationships is herself, not really the men that she's dating. Because, you know, when she's not worried about dating men or chasing them, she's a completely different person. But the second that she finds a new guy to date, she seems to go crazy trying to get him to stay and love her. And she's always been kind of like this. But on this season of The Single Life, I mean, it's gotten even worse than before. And she always seems to think the guys she's with are treating her badly. But in reality, it's more her overreacting over everything. And it's like she just doesn't know how to have a peaceful relationship. I mean, every time we see her with a guy, there's always a ton of drama and arguments, and pretty much all of it is just Natalie being really petty, and that's how she was with her ex-husband Mike that she first appeared with on the show, and they ended up getting divorced because of it, and now it looks like pretty much the same thing is happening with Josh, who she's been dating on The Single Life. Both of the guys seem like pretty good and reasonable people, at least from the arguments that they were having with Natalie. And although Mike used to argue back a lot more than Josh does, but Josh actually has an interesting reaction to Natalie's tantrums. I mean, he stays calm, he doesn't escalate the conflict at all, and the more upset she gets, the less he tends to speak. So I thought that maybe this could make a difference in their relationship. And although what would really make a difference in this relationship, or any relationship that Natalie is in, is if she just got therapy. I mean, people on Reddit have been saying that Natalie clearly has some attachment issues that she needs to work through, and I can really see that too. I mean, to be honest, whenever she's single, she's actually a pretty strong person. She's not afraid to speak her mind. She really knows what she wants and will follow her dreams and all that kind of stuff. And even when she's with a guy she doesn't really like that much, she's really good at setting boundaries and letting him know what she's thinking. But whenever she's actually interested in a guy and decides that she wants to have a relationship with him, that's where it all goes downhill. Because she becomes obsessive and clingy, and it's like all she can think about is securing some form of commitment from the guy, and she starts to panic whenever the guy isn't really giving her that. Like in the recent episode of Single Life, you know, Josh had to go to work, and he even told her about it in advance, but Natalie got really upset that, you know, because it was right after they spent the night together, if you know what I mean, and she imagined he would stay with her afterwards and maybe cuddle, and I get it, but she just wanted to spend the morning together, but he couldn't do that because he had to go to work, and he actually seemed pretty apologetic about that and was trying to be sensitive about it, but Natalie just wouldn't really listen at that point, and it was like a switch got flipped and there was no way to have a reasonable conversation with her anymore. And she's also just jealous about the fact that Josh works with a lot of young women who are his models, and Natalie is just not comfortable with that. And you know, she's also wasn't comfortable with it when Mike was hanging out and partying with his friends who were women. And she says that in Ukraine, where she's from, it's not really common for guys to be friends with girls and vice versa. So the cultural difference could also be a pretty big part of her issue, and something she also really wants from a relationship is to start a family. And she's not just looking to date, but she wants to get married and have a child, and she's not interested in playing around at all. And I understand wanting a family, and that's a very valid thing, but there's something about just looking for a relationship that she can have a kid that's just not quite right. And Natalie seems to choose her partners almost exclusively based on how good of a fit they would be for, the life she wants. Like, do they want kids? Would they make a good dad? And she even said that it was really important to her that the father of her kids believed in God, not her partner, but the father of her kids. And I feel like even though she's otherwise really good at saying what she wants, she's completely failing to consider her own preferences when she's looking for a guy to date. And the only thing she seems to think about is the guy eventually becoming a father to her kids, and she doesn't really consider what she would want in someone she's potentially going to spend the rest of her life with, which might really become an issue of her, down the line when she does find a guy to settle down with. I mean, she might find out that even though the guy is a good dad, she doesn't really like spending time with him, and I'm not sure how long it might take her to realize that, but hopefully she gets lucky and her partner is actually a good fit for her personality too, or even better, she could learn some healthier ways of finding a partner in the first place, because she also makes some pretty questionable choices when she's trying to get a guy to commit to her. I mean, first of all, she always wants to talk about having kids on the first date, which tends to be a pretty big red flag for a lot of people, and she doesn't really seem to realize that, but it gets a lot worse than that, because after she spent the night with Josh the other time, we found out that they actually didn't use any protection, and Natalie actually seemed pretty unaware that she could get pregnant just from one night. So on top of everything she has going on, she might also need some basic, biology lesson too, and also the unwanted pregnancy concern aside, it didn't look like she had a single thought about STDs, and I mean, she barely even knew Josh, but either way, pretty much everyone seems to think that Natalie and Josh should, just break up as soon as possible, which, like I said, they probably have done already, and though it happened a little later than I thought it would, since I was sure that it would be over for Natalie, and Josh after the LA visit, and it ended in a total fiasco. I mean, I thought Natalie had shown enough red flags that Josh would for sure run and never come back, but that didn't really happen. I mean, they actually kept texting after Natalie returned home from LA, and then Natalie flew out for a trip to Arizona with Josh, and the reason she was going there was to meet Josh's kids and also his ex-wife, which didn't exactly go over really well. And to be honest, that was probably for the better. I mean, because Josh definitely has some red flags too. He wanted to introduce her to his family, and after the LA fiasco, that seemed like an interesting choice. And although maybe he was just trying to make her feel comfortable in the relationship, his own way of showing commitment. But then he also told Natalie that he had blocked out a lot of time to spend with her, and she ended up staying the night alone in the Airbnb, and it was because Josh was going to his Arizona home, but his kids lived there, and Natalie couldn't meet his kids before Josh's ex-wife approved of it, so it actually did kind of make sense. But Josh said that he would make time for her, and then she had to spend a lot of time alone. So I honestly think that it might be the best for Natalie to stay single for now and possibly get some therapy so that she can just resolve her attachment issues. But anyway, what do you guys think? Do you agree that Natalie and Josh, should break up? Or do you think she's ready for a relationship? I mean, let me know in the comments below.